Okay, well, welcome back. We're on deck. We're looking at logical reasoning, and we're going to start here on prep test 87, section 2, questions 16. All right, so let's begin. What's the issue here is identify a flaw, right? So you're starting with the issue, and there it is. The reasoning, the argument is most vulnerable to criticism. Okay, got it. So now I want to go to the argument, which is a rule. And I want to apply the issue to the rule, which means I'm identifying a flaw. And the goal is to identify the flaw, or at least the rough outlines of it, before I look at an answer choice, which then informs me when I look at the answer choices. So here goes. Art may make the world more beautiful, but one should choose a career in some profession, other than art. So you stop. You say, okay, that's the argument's conclusion. I mean, you need to explain that. And the conclusion has to do with this one person who is saying, you know, you should not, you should choose a career other than art, which means that there must be something different about art than other careers. And that's the conclusion. Let's see what evidence we get. The evidence is, next sentence, whether and how much artists get paid is determined by a subjective evaluation by viewers or audiences of their work. Okay, I agree with that. It is. Next sentence, it is unacceptable for one's pay to be determined by subjective evaluations of one's work. So the argument is you should not become an artist because you'll be paid, basically, the subjective value will determine how you get paid. So why would art be different from anything else or many things else? So the flaw in this argument is quite evident to me. This needs to make the case that this is unique to art. That this is art's the only place this happens, and that's simply wrong. So they'll give me the words, but the concept of this answer is going to be, hey, chuckles. Lots of other things in life. Your pay is based on the personal taste of the customer. Okay, hey. So it takes for granted that people should choose careers solely on the basis of how much they pay. No, it doesn't do that solely on the basis. B, it takes for granted that a work of art will be considered beautiful by either by everyone or by no one. And that's just silly. I mean, it's just, again, if you pick it, don't do it again, but it's not a real good, wrong answer. C, it overlooks the possibility that one's pay in any profession involves a certain degree of subjective evaluation. That's what this is about. You got to pull a trigger and you got to get your ass out of here. C is the answer. It can only be one answer to a flaw issue. That's it. Okay. But for those in your crowd who insist on staying in college and never getting to law school, we'll look at D and E. D, it overlooks the possibility that some artists are paid very well. It doesn't overlook that possibility. It just says it's random, subjective. And E, it treats a criterion that must be satisfied in order for a career choice to be a good one as a criterion that will ensure that a career choice is a good one. And they're just putting that there to suck your time up. So E is not the answer. That's not what this is about. You got to go in there saying it's got to do with subjective evaluations may apply to things other than art. So the answer number 16 is C for Caligula. 17. The issue presented is the claim that the overall trend in entertainment towards moral complexity is a good thing plays which one of the following roles in the argument, in the critic's argument. Here's one of those things you would, in advance, for role in the argument questions, at least experiment with using a highlighter. I'm not a big fan of it, but it does um, focus your attention on what it's supposed to be focused on. If you highlight the claim itself, but you want to be fluent in how those things work, because you don't want to highlight part of a phrase, not the whole phrase, and then go back. And I'm not a big fan of highlighting because when you're highlighting, you're not looking at the text. But in an issue like this, I do see how it can help. Okay, but in any case, we're back to role in the argument. Okay. So what do I have here? So each sentence, I'm reading the role in the argument, and then I'm going to have the answer. I mean, not the exact words, but I'll have the answer. So here's a critic. A critic informs us that vampires have traditionally been symbols of pure evil. Fine, that's fact. They've been traditionally symbols of pure evil. Okay. Recently, there has been a trend in entertainment of humanizing vampires. And again, you're presenting to me this is a fact that there is this trend of humanizing something that was pure evil. Next sentence. This is unfortunate. And that is the conclusion. So the conclusion of this argument is it's unfortunate that the vampires are being humanized. Okay, so we still haven't got to what we're looking for. And it's the next sentence, which is the overall trend in entertainment towards moral complexity is a good thing. So you're saying, okay, whatever that sentence does is doing something to the argument's conclusion. The argument's conclusion is it's unfortunate that you're humanizing vampires. This sentence kind of like gives a nod to it. You know, it's like saying, well, it's unfortunate, but there are limits to this because overall it is a good idea. To move towards moral complexity, and moral complexity would involve humanizing vampires. Certainly, would be morally complex. So, its role in the argument is to temper the edge, feather the edges of that conclusion up to this point. And final sentence: but evil exists in the world, and the vampire myth is one of the most powerful representations of that. Got it. So again, seeing this sentence, the one we're directed to, in the overall construct of the argument, it's there to feather the edges of the conclusion, but to lend support to it, but just to limit its application. Okay, I got it. So now I'm just looking for those words. A, it states a principle used to support the conclusion of the argument. No, it's not stating a principle. It's feathering the edges of the conclusion that was given. B, it places limits on how broadly the conclusion of the argument should be generalized. B is the answer. And again, in my world, it's a psychometric test. If you're prepared, if you've done this work, if you look at B and you are, whatever that is, 94%, 96% certain it's the answer, pick it and get your ass out of there. So B will be the answer. So we'll keep reading. C is its role in the argument to justify the need for the arguments being given. I don't even know what that means, but clearly not. It provides a hypothesis that is rejected in the conclusion of the argument. No, it's limiting the conclusion, but it's necessarily not rejecting it. And E, it is the conclusion. No, it's not. The conclusion is it's unfortunate. So the answer to question number 17 is B for Brutus. 18. Issue. Which one of the following provides the strongest support for the biologist's hypothesis? Now, again, this is another one of those instances where you're being directed specifically to the hypothesis. And so if you want to highlight the hypothesis, they have to find the hypothesis. But if it's something you can pick up right away and you want to highlight it, you've got to have fluency in the tools. Now, you don't have to highlight it. But I do think, since they're directing you to the hypothesis, you certainly want to be particularly attentive to it. So if you were doing that, I would just scan down here to it, and sure enough, that last line is the hypothesis. But let me read it, and let me give the answer choice that I think provides the most support for it. Some killer whales eat fish exclusively, but others also eat seals. Okay, so stop. You're reading text today. I got it. So the killer whales, there are some that just eat fish, but others that eat seals as well as fish. Okay, got it. And that's a fact. Different groups of killer whales chatter in distinct dialects. And the dialects of seal-eating killer whales are recognizably different from those of killer whales that do not eat seals. So you stop. Okay. So first you tell me there are these two types of seals. And now you tell me each type of seal has it shatters in a recognizably different way, so you would know one from the other. Got it. Harbor seals use their ability to distinguish between different killer whale dialects to avoid seal eating killer whales. And again, you got to stop. I mean, they're not wording it in a friendly way and say, okay, but if I'm a seal, uh, I can distinguish the chatter of a whale that's a threat to me as opposed to a whale that's not a threat to me. Now, we still have not gotten to the hypothesis. So here's the hypothesis. And this is really what I care about. So based on that, on those facts, the marine biologists hypothesize that young harbor seals start with an aversion to all killer whales, but then learn to ignore those that do not eat seals. So let me take that down because that's really where they're focusing me. First of all, they're dealing with the young harbor seals, and they start off, they're shying away from all whales, but then they learn. So learn is a really important word, and Ani else said a lot. Uh, you can learn something, or something can be intuitive, something can be uh, nature driven, so that you don't learn it. But this is learning. So you're saying the young harbor seals learn to ignore uh, the whales that do not eat seals. Okay, I got it. And you want me to find one of these answer choices that provides the strongest support for that hypothesis. Okay, let's look here. A, killer whales that eat seals also eat other marine mammals that are similar in size to seals. That's just missing the entire point. B, unlike harbor seals, who can hear killer whale chatter at great distances, most fish cannot hear that chatter even close at hand. And again, that's far afield. That's way beyond the scope of this hypothesis. See, when mature harbor seals first listen to the recorded chatter of killer whales that eat only fish, but whose dialect is unfamiliar, the seals rapidly swim away from the sound. So I say, well, you know, this is going to put a lot of people off because they're talking about mature harbor whales. But those folks probably didn't pick up on the word learn in the hypothesis, because the hypothesis is this is something that they learn to do. So what C does is, well, here's a mature harbor seal who's first listening to this. So that mature one hasn't learned this yet, right? So C, when mature harbor seals first listen to the recorded chatter of killer whales that eat only fish, but whose dialect is unfamiliar to them, these seals swim away from the sound. And that is consistent with, I would keep reading for sure, but that is definitely consistent with and supports the hypothesis. D, young harbor seals show no natural aversion to any seal predators other than killer whales. Again, I must say here, A, B, and D are not strong alternatives. And E, so we have a hypothetical, if a fish-eating killer whale mistakenly attacks a harbor seal, that seal, if it survives, will subsequently avoid all killer whales that chatter in the attacker's dialect, but other harbor seals will not. And I just imagine a ton of people will pick that. Um, and my problem with that is it really doesn't address the hypothesis that this is learned, that this starts, the hypothesis being you're going to learn to do this. And here in E, you're saying, well, if it's a mistake, well, wait a minute. If it's a mistake, um, then there's nothing in the original hypothesis about something being a mistake, right? So you're saying here, if it's a mistake, so I have to speculate what would happen when it's a mistake. I certainly could speculate that under those circumstances, that when the harbor seal is mistakenly attacked, that going forward, it will subsequently avoid all killer whales that chatter in that dialect, but other harbor seals will not. You can speculate that, but it's a hypothetical, and I don't know that this hypothesis covers that hypothetical, because in this hypothesis, it's not about a mistake. It's about, you learn who your enemies are. You learn who who's preying on you, and you stay away. What other harbor seals would do if E were true, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But I think E is a great wrong answer. And what to me, what makes it clear on C is absolutely reinforcing the hypothesis that this is a learned behavior. So the answer to number 18 is C for Caligula, and we'll hold it there.